KMT and DPP definitions of the Republic of China, the ROC. I can't really speak for the KMT, but I can offer my interpretation of their policy. I think, let me just share with you, when the DPP first came into government after the year 2000, there used to be a map in our foreign ministry of the Republic of China that included all of China, including Mongolia. And that was the Republic of China in our foreign ministry. And the Mongolians refused to come to our foreign ministry because we included Mongolia as part of our territory. So shortly into our government, we changed the map and we removed Mongolia from the ROC map. And Mongolia established a trade office in Taipei, and we established one in Mongolia as well. So this is a gradual evolution of how ROC is defined. And Tsai recently said the Republic of China is Taiwan. And Ma Ying-jeou sometimes would say that, but he would also say that Taiwan is a region of the Republic of China. But I think if you want to say what are the key differences between the parties, I think both parties can agree that we want to sustain the status quo across the strait for now. That conditions are such that it's unrealistic to make unilateral changes either way. However, I think the key difference is in the future, in the end game. That is, the DPP's position is that any future change has to be agreed by the people of Taiwan through a referendum or democratic means. If there is a change in the status quo, it has to be agreed by the people of Taiwan. While the KMT, at least officially, the end game is ultimate unification, although that is not a current policy. There are very few parties, actually only the Chinese New Party and some other smaller parties that don't have any elected seats in Taiwan that would advocate unification in today's politics in Taiwan. It doesn't have a market, at least not now. So it seems a mainstream consensus in Taiwan for now is to maintain the status quo. And the key difference is in how things would evolve in the future and how we would react to the evolutions in the future. You asked about Tsai Ing-wen's policy on regards to China. I think there are a lot of different elements in our policy towards China. There's the political element, there's the security side, and there's the economic side. And it's kind of complicated. You can't use the same attitude to deal with the three different areas. I think on the security side, it's very clear that despite political reconciliation or the policy that Ma Ying-jeou has carried out over the past couple years toward China, the deployment of missiles, the military buildup across the Taiwan Strait has not ceased. It has continued in a quite a very aggressive way. And so the security element is still a very serious part of our policy towards China. And I think both parties in Taiwan agree that we have to maintain a degree of security and cooperation with the United States that involves continuation of arms sales because of the continuing buildup of the threat across the Taiwan Strait. On the political side, I just outlined our political differences, and that is in the maintaining the status quo, but ultimately if there is a change, there has to be a democratic approval of such a change. I think the economic side is perhaps more complicated. It's not a yes or no question. I think even the most radical elements of the DPP will agree that it's a reality that both Taiwan, the two sides across the straits, have a high degree of economic integration, and that it is a trend that cannot be immediately reversed no matter how much they would want to. So it's not a yes or no question. It's a matter of to what degree or how fast this integration or liberalization should take place. And the DPP position on this is that we are in favor of normalization of an economic relationship. However, we are uncomfortable with the pace that Ma Ying-jeou has been going. That is a pace that we feel is too fast. And we feel that economic integration should be accompanied by other mechanisms to soften the impact it has on our domestic economy. The outward movement of jobs of certain industries to China does raise serious internal social issues. And also further integration with China has brought about, just as in Hong Kong, greater income disparities within Taiwan. There's a lot of job insecurity, even though we have enjoyed a growth rate of about 5 or 6% on average. We had a recession also like the United States. But this growth apparently has not been shared by the middle class, by the working people in Taiwan. It has been concentrated among a few industry sectors within Taiwan. So how this integration should take place, how this economic interaction would actually benefit the people of Taiwan is a very important policy question. We welcome, and this is related to the next question, that is, we welcome Chinese tourists, and we welcome investments that are good for the industrial progress within Taiwan. However, we are against opening up investments in certain sensitive areas, such as our port facilities, telecommunications, and other critical infrastructure. But I think we are gradually moving towards a normalization process of the economic interaction. In terms of the agreements already signed across the strait, actually the direct flights that are happening now, the negotiations actually began when the DPP was in government. Even though a lot of people have this stereotype of the DPP as being closed to China, but we actually initiated the negotiations for direct flights when we were in government. As long as our security is not jeopardized, the reduction of the cost, the transaction cost, and traveling across the Taiwan Strait is welcomed by most people, and it also helps to facilitate tourism to Taiwan. You know, in fact, when I've been campaigning, it's interesting because some Chinese tourist groups like to take photos of our political campaigns, and we've been told that part of the favorite activity among some Chinese tourists is to watch our political talk shows in the hotels at night. And that's very different, or something that the Chinese do not have the opportunity to enjoy in mainland China. So in principle, we welcome Chinese tourists, although there have been issues about whether or not they're really spending a lot, or the impact they are having on our tourist industry, and some people are making money and some aren't, and all of these are more detailed policy issues that we will have to work out. I think the bigger economic question is regarding ECFA and the future of this framework agreement or free trade agreement. Normal free trade agreements require generally a period of 10 years where the two economies would gradually be completely open to each other, and we have serious concerns about that. That we should not frame ourselves into a timeline where our negotiating leverage could be limited. But what has been signed is signed. And any government, whether it's a DPP or any future government in Taiwan, will have to honor all agreements that have been signed with other partners internationally and also across the strait. So what has been signed is signed, but what we have to do is to conduct regular reviews on the impact this agreement has on Taiwan. And if changes are necessary, if our society feels, and if there is a degree of consensus that change is required, we have to do that through the democratic process. When ECFA was initially being negotiated, we adamantly opposed it because we had problems with the lack of transparency. The contents were not revealed to us, even throughout the legislative voting process, but since we had such a small minority, there's really nothing we could do about it through the legislative process. But the commitment of the DPP is that if any changes are to be made, it would require, we would assume that there has to be a large degree of public consensus, but it would be done through a legislative process. So That's how we will be dealing with the economic interaction across the strait. But I have to say that the cross-strait relationship is very important for Taiwan, the security side, the political side, but I think what's most relevant in the upcoming election is actually the economic dimension of it. I think a lot of people in Taiwan, just like the steel workers in Ohio or the auto workers in Michigan, there's a lot of anxiety when they feel, or there's the sentiment or the feeling that jobs are moving out of Taiwan and over to China. And there will be political consequences to that unless there is a rebalancing of the economic relationship. And so this is something that I think any future government will have to work on.